Um, all right. February 18th, Waffle Wednesday. It's been kind of interesting. There's some kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I guess the last 6 years, 5 years, I've been creating kind of a life story. Essentially, I've had an opportunity to recognize that I have some pretty peculiar personality traits and I guess capabilities. It relates a lot to things like young psychology, where you absorb more of your environment. You can recognize information that other people can't get. You can read rooms and um, maybe a little along the lines of instincts, gut feeling, premonition, just kind of an absorption of information that other people aren't necessarily able to recognize. The challenge is that it creates a type of anxiety that is it's really challenging. It's not something that is what you would recognize as kind of a traditional anxiety. Really, it's more of a sense that it's more along the lines that you can't be tricked by conventional forms of anxiety. It is something that you are absorbing information about the environment around you, about people, about places, information from the past, context clues towards the future at a rate that is extremely hard to process. It's pretty overwhelming. It's also really hard to find people that have experience with that have avenues to navigate it, to give you tools to kind of figure out, how to cope with it. One of the big things for me is that I've spent a lot of time with psychologists. I started, like when I was like fifth grade, and I've had the opportunity to look at my life and examine it really closely and see, what works and what doesn't. And one of the big things is that, my bike has been a really big tool for me. It's one that I got to the point where I hated being a bike mechanic. It wasn't fulfilling. It doesn't really pay very well. What I really wanted to do was talk to people and translate what they feel on a bike to how I can make that a better experience for them. And I was trying to do that. In 2020, at the start of the year, I had worked with Kaiser. We did a bunch of things like setting boundaries and not overpromising, recognizing self-destructive personality traits. And I had smashed my head pretty hard at Whistler, ironically on A-line, and shook my confidence quite a bit. I was displaced from my environment, my entire social life. Like I never went to people's houses. If you invited me to dinner, I wasn't going to show up. If you invited me to a birthday party, it probably wasn't going to be there. It was enough for me to just have people come into the shop and talk to me about bikes. Cycling is great from a fitness aspect, but it also provides a lot of other tools. On weekends, you have an accountability partner. You have people that are telling you got to be at the trailhead at 7 in the morning. So you got to have your stuff prepared the night before. You got to have your gear together. Those accountability partners are people that really do something without recognizing, the benefits of that, and it operates on a subconscious level. On top of that, you have just the work. You're going to have to work to go uphill, but you're going to get the reward going down. So you train yourself to put in work to get, dopamine and adrenaline. And a lot of people refer to things like tree therapy, or just getting some fresh air and how important that is. And it really does, have a big effect. And the other thing is that it creates a community of people that are able to stimulate the production of things like serotonin, dopamine, adrenaline, regulate emotions, that sort of thing. And one of the big challenges that I had with that was that I don't have relationships with people that are anything further than, just surface level. I don't have people that I text on a regular basis. I can't just, randomly text people and have conversations. It's, I was at the point where I was, it's basically just people asking me questions about bikes or parts or if I wanted to ride. And that disappeared. It was really hard to deal with. I saw it coming a long time ago, though. And luckily I reached out to some folks that helped give me some tools. Some folks along the way really didn't understand what I was going through or what I was doing. And I ran into a handful of folks that really put me in a backwards direction, especially from a mental health standpoint, telling me, things like they're not going to give me referrals to people that can help, or, kind of giving diagnosis that didn't make sense. And it's pretty discouraging. But one thing about that is that, with, for a lot of folks, you look back at your childhood and a lot of people, the first like real feeling of freedom kind of comes from riding a bike. That coasting, just breeze in your hair. That's a lot of people. That's like their first moment of freedom. And it's really interesting. Just the month of February in 2026 is really peculiar, and I'll kind of get into that in just a minute. So, when I was really young, I really wanted to be an astronaut. We lived in Virginia. Before I was in kindergarten, I was like building models of Estes rockets, like the SR-71 Blackbird, which was built by Skunk Works at Lockheed Martin. That was something that I really wanted to do. I was fascinated by space. So kind of how that relates to the month of February in 2026 is that, so Friday's my birthday. It's February 20th. I'll be 39, which, if you want to go really crazy, fits into kind of that Tesla theory of 369, world vibrations. You can, kind of recognize, and just there's information out there that we are connected in ways that we may not traditionally have the capacity to understand. So kind of a weird bit. The Wright brothers, the ones that invented flight in the form of an airplane. First flight, I think, was at Kitty Hawk. They were bike mechanics. So it's kind of bizarre that I started wanting to be an astronaut and kind of translated to bikes. I got into bikes because it gave me something that you could apply math and science and reason. I could analyze, a cause and effect, look at things from a mechanical perspective, but also from an emotional standpoint. It just gave me a release. I don't like being around people very much. I have a hard time coping with social situations. And so the bike was really a good coping mechanism. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, sticking with the bike mechanic thing was probably a little too long. Before I started my shop, when Mark asked me to help him open Canyon View, I said I was never going to work in a bike shop again. It wasn't fulfilling in the way I wanted it to be. It didn't it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. I think bikes are a great tool, and they can certainly be used to change the world. But in Longview, a bike shop, like, I mean, you're not really doing a whole lot. You're not gonna make any money. You're not gonna be, someone that's out there, buying, $90,000 full size trucks and $1 million houses. Like, it's not gonna happen. And I knew that. I don't care about money. I wanted something fulfilling, which is something that kind of goes back to that space feeling. John Glenn was the first person in orbit, and he happened to do it on February 20th, my birthday, which is kind of an interesting aspect. In addition, this period, I think starting this week and into next week, is one of the rare instances where we have the planets aligning, which is a really, really interesting aspect. Kind of another bit about that is that a lot of my personality relates to me talking about my brain and my body being two very different things, which kind of relates a lot to like Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and Jung. And it's interesting that Schopenhauer was actually born on February 22nd, which is 2 days after my birthday, in the exact same town of Danzig, Germany, Gdansk, Poland, which is where my grandfather was born. It's weird that there's all these connections between outer space and feeling things that aren't necessarily recognizable by the average person, bikes, and kind of how that relates to our nervous system and the way we work. So I've been having a pretty hard time managing that. I definitely haven't had a whole lot of resources step in and provide help. I've had a lot of frustrations with phones being taken over, or emails not being able to access, or trouble with even being able to file a police report, just things that just the way that the system works. There's not really a lot of people to help, and people don't care to. They don't have time to listen. They don't have time to understand. You can put something in front of somebody and they will read it with their own intentions or their own ideas and apply those. And I've kind of learned to weaponize that to a degree, to kind of force people to make actions that are kind of reveal their character or reveal information to me. So this has been a really weird week. I did finally, after, it's been over a year. I did finally get in to see a doctor. I did finally get referrals to hopefully find someone, that has experience with, kind of that young psychology and might be able to help me find some better resources, rather than, kind of being at home isolated, not having a social life for people to talk to. Kind of, I do have a really nice girlfriend that does a lot of nice things for me. She helped in a lot of ways. There's a lot to do moving forward. I want to say that things feel optimistic, but can't ignore that there are a lot of things that I can't control. There are a lot of pieces of information that I can't stop myself from seeing. I don't have a perfect memory. I don't have an eidetic memory or photographic memory, but I do have an algorithm of ways that I create images to remember things. And I also figured out that it's easier to memorize experiences than memorize data. And it's because there are emotions to go with it. And so I started creating a picture or an image of a lot of those experiences, and they tie into a story, which is essentially what I call the Wraith of Kenny and the double helix supernova bike shop paradox. So it relates to Carl Jung's shadow work, where you kind of have an alchemical process where you go through and you strip down all the things that don't work for you, all of the kind of the masks that you've created to create an image for other people, and you get to a point and it doesn't work anymore. You just have to walk away from it. It's a situation that for the most part you're pretty much guaranteed to ruin your life going through it, especially if you don't have a good support system or people to help you through it. So I have a playlist that relates a lot to it, and it helps me create mental images to memorize what's been going on, to give me kind of motivation towards the future, and I'd like to turn it into a book. I think that's something that would be fun. I think I might be able to humiliate some folks into recognizing that they're pretty stupid in the process, which is not the goal, but it might be kind of fun to hold it over their heads that you made some mistakes, and it's pretty obvious. That's, again, it's not the goal. It's a book. Again, the Wraith of Kenny, double helix supernova bike shop paradox. I got everything I've ever wanted in life by the time I was 36 years old. I walked away from it because it didn't work anymore. There's not a whole lot of people in their life that can say that they've gotten everything they've ever wanted. It has nothing to do with money. It's a weird experience to explain to people. I don't think that many people would understand how that works and what it takes to get through to the other side and find something purposeful that also isn't painful. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Another interesting part about that is that a wraith is typically something that is comes from Norse mythology. It is like a shadow that hangs over your back at and by nature it shows up before death, or and you can relate it. It's typically someone that is like a wizard that casts a spell with time that goes bad, and you can tie it to Harry Potter. The Dementors in it are essentially wraiths. They suck the soul out of people, and it's wizards. And in that same video that the Dementors show up, there's actually a point where Hermione and Harry Potter are able to use a device that they can be two places at once, which is kind of an indicator that they are, messing with time. And that's part of, kind of the intuitive introverts, is that you can read information past, present, and apply it to the future, or and it's kind of one of those things that I saw this coming a long time ago. I knew what I was in for. I knew what I was going to go through, not to the degree that it was going to happen, and not necessarily the way it was going to happen, but I was able to see it coming. So the double helix part is that it's the way I'm built. Double helix as in DNA, and then the bike shop paradox. I got everything I ever wanted. Being in a bike shop was not the solution. Neither of us can exist anymore. I don't mean that in a way that I'm gonna bounce myself off the windshield of a dump truck or something like that. I just mean that part of the alchemical process is that actually Nietzsche did a pretty good job with Übermensch. You are essentially taking your traits and you have to get rid of what doesn't work anymore. Create a new person with new values, and use that to guide you. So the other cool part about that is that a wraith is a shadowy figure, and that is the first part of Jung's alchemical process, is the shadow work. It is breaking down the stuff that doesn't work. So it kind of all ties together. The other part about that is that the Wraith of Kenny. Kenny is a nickname that was given to me by mountain bikers. Pretty much only mountain bikers know it. So it's kind of a funny thing. It's a nickname. It's that person that I had to get rid of in order to kind of find my true self. The other part about that is that if you take the first letter from the Wraith of Kenny, it spells 2K, which is my initials, or it could be Kevin and Kenny. I don't know, whatever. So I have a playlist that I've been creating, and I'm not quite ready to put it out yet. It's getting there. It will happen. But that's kind of my processing point. I'm kind of just boiling things down right now, trying to figure out next steps. I'm having a really hard time with my commute to work. I spend a lot of time driving. I'm not really making a whole lot of money. I'm spending a ton on gas, spending a ton on car maintenance. It's kind of making me question whether or not I still want to be there. I like the engineering side of it, seeing how things work. I like the just running machines and seeing that production side, being able to use math, it's fitting. It allows me to, kind of itch my OCD side of needing to be, organized, just loading up pallets and making sure their weight distribution is even though it doesn't matter. So it's a weird thing. That's kind of the last couple weeks. Like I said, I missed the last couple Waffle Wednesdays, so this is kind of making up for those. A little longer than I wanted it to be, but there's progress moving forward. Maybe someone will see this and they'll have some ideas and they'll reach out, because it's been a pretty long process.